Once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. Here's the latest China news buried by this week's debate over gun control in the aftermath of last week's Florida shooting. President Donald Trump will meet with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. He arrived in Washington on Wednesday and is meeting with top administration officials before meeting with Trump on Friday. Among the items at the top of their agenda, China, its regional dominance in the Pacific Rim, and as the Olympics come to an end, its role in the nuclear crisis on the Korean Peninsula. Here with analysis on this and the proposed Vatican-China deal is attorney, Asian affairs expert, and author of the prescient Nuclear Showdown. North Korea takes on the world. Gordon Chang joins us from CPAC. Gordon, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much.
On Friday, President Trump will meet, as you heard, with Malcolm Turnbull, the Aussie PM, and they'll discuss China's continued expansionism in the South China Sea. Now, you believe, Gordon, that China not only wants to provoke confrontation in this contested area of water, it wants to pull the trigger. Why would it do that, and what does that mean?
Well, essentially, China wants to dominate the South China Sea and other peripheral waters. And what we're looking at is essentially what they've done in the past. When they've seen an opportunity to use force, they've done so. And so we cannot assume that they've changed their posture on this. And unfortunately, China has notions of its own size that are just incompatible because those notions conflict with surrounding nations and also with the United States, because we believe that the South China Sea and other waters are part of the global commons. And if the United States has had any consistent foreign policy over the course of centuries, it's been defense of freedom of navigation.
There has been international opposition to this, and in 2016 there was that ruling from The Hague which said there is no legal basis for China's claims over the sovereignty of these waters. How can the U.S. and other nations deter China from that continued expansionism of these seas? I mean, they've created literal fake islands, to try to mark their territory.
Well, the most important thing is to prevent China from taking over additional territory. And here, the flashpoint is Scarborough Shoal, which is about 124 nautical miles from the main Philippine island of Luzon, and it's not very near China. China seized it in early 2012, but they have not begun to reclaim it. And I believe that reclamation should be a bright line. This is something that the international community can't allow, because if we do that, then we're allowing them to make permanent an act of aggression.
Gordon, this week marks the end of the Winter Olympics in South Korea, where North and South Korean athletes were united. They presented as one group. Much attention has been paid to the region due to the Games, but also due to those tensions between the U.S. and North Korea after the missiles were fired late last year, those intercontinental ballistic missiles in late November, which caused such agita in the region. That promised meeting with Kim Jong-un's sister at the Olympics between Xi and Vice President Pence was shot down by the North Koreans, we now learn. A missed opportunity, in your opinion?
Well, not for us. What we did was we agreed to meet with Kim Yo-jong, the sister that you referred to, and we did that because we wanted to make sure that we maintained good relations with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, who tried to arrange that meeting. And so we made concessions with that regard, because our position in the past had been we're not going to talk to the North Koreans until they acknowledge that they have to disarm.
Right.
So this was really an issue of alliance management with Seoul.
Gordon, the Chinese are North Korea, let's face it. They smuggle goods in and out for them. They trade with them. They're their economic lifeline. Is it wise for the U.S. to continue to turn to China as a means of containing North Korean aggression, whether nuclear or otherwise?
Well, I think we should, but we need to start imposing real costs on China for those things that you mentioned, for supporting the North Koreans, for busting UN sanctions, and for other bad behavior like transferring components, equipment, and materials for their nuclear weapons program. We haven't done that. And until we do that, we're not going to get Beijing moving in a better direction.
This week, the Communist Party of China is marking the 170th anniversary of the first publication of the Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. At the 19th National Congress of the CPC in October, President Xi Jinping said that the culture of socialism with Chinese characteristics offers a new option for other countries and nations who want to speed up their development while preserving their independence. In what direction is Xi taking China? It looks to me as if he's gathering powers to himself in unprecedented fashion.
Well, he demands absolute control over the party and that the party have absolute control over society. He's closing China off to foreign companies. He's trying to grab territory from an arc of nations. He's trying to close off the global commons. He is actually trying to get rid of foreign culture in China, attacking Santa Claus and hip-hop music. This is just China moving in all the wrong directions across a broad front.
No, he appears to be trying to establish a hegemon with himself at the center, sort of a second Mao. And that's peculiar, Gordon, given his biography. I mean, his father was a high-ranking official, was arrested, spent time in the law. Guy was murdered there, right? And he, or one of his sisters, rather, suicided as a result of this. Did you expect something different from Xi's reign?
No, and the reason is, Xi Jinping had been talking about certain things which people were ignoring. He had praised Mao and all the rest of it. Also, this is just the nature of China's communist system, that it was going to get to a point where someone was going to try to accumulate power after the years of his predecessor, Hu Jintao, who was generally considered to be the weakest of China's general secretaries. So this was foreseeable.
Wow. In the last several weeks, the Vatican has issued statements that they are close to a deal with China, which would include mutual recognition. The Chinese government would recognize dozens of underground bishops, and the Catholic Church would accept several bishops previously appointed by the government. Now, there's a curious wrinkle here. This is unprecedented, Gordon, from the Catholic perspective, where the government chooses bishop candidates and the Pope essentially has to rubber stamp them. And if he doesn't, there's a council, it has been reported, that could overrule him. Will this gain the Church any measure of freedom in China and those who are believers on the ground?
No, and we're seeing resistance not only from Catholics in China, but also Catholics everywhere, Cardinal Zen of Hong Kong, of course. I don't think that this is going to work out as Pope Francis thinks. And in a few years, we'll see that this was a debacle from the point of view of the Church.
In September, the Chinese government came out with those new regulations that were designed to curb and regulate religion in China. These new regulations, they went into effect on February 1st. We've reported on them in the past. And they call them 5 transformations of the Catholic Patriotic Association. That is the state-sanctioned version of the Church. Here they are: localizing religion, standardizing management, the control and appointment of bishops, indigenize theology, I guess to add communist thought to it, show financial transparency, and adapt Christian teaching as to mold them into institutions that reflect the objectives of the Communist Party. This reads like a move to restrict and further restrict already stringent rules on the practice of religion. Your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen developments since then also in that direction. It's clear the Communist Party thinks that it can control religion. It's going to try to do so. And unfortunately, it now seems to have an ally in the Vatican. I think that we're going to see a schism in the Catholic Church in China because people are not going to like this deal, and they probably are going to start their own Catholic church on a different level, away from the Communist Party.
Wow. Given the history of persecutions against members of the official and underground church, what do you see as the future of religious and religious people in China? Not only in light of these rules, but given what you know about the way this regime deals with any group that's a challenge to its authority.
Believers are going to win. They won in the Soviet Union. They've won elsewhere. China's Communist Party is really afraid of religion. And it should be, because religion is winning and the Communist Party is retreating. Yeah, the party can be coercive. They can win short-term victories. Long term, it doesn't have a chance.
A historian and theologian in the United States, an Italian one, Massimo Fagioli is his name. He tweeted something out the other day. I want to share this with you and get your response. He says, for the social and political tradition of Roman Catholicism, it is relatively easier to talk with the government of the People's Republic of China than with the NRA and Second Amendment Catholics in the United States. Your reaction to that idea?
Yeah, I don't agree. You know, this is obviously very political from a domestic point of view. But, you know, I believe that, I just can't accept those statements.
Yeah. Give me your thoughts, Gordon, on the Vatican's optimistic view of China and being able to make a deal with the People's Republic of China. Is that a good piece of calculus, given what we know about the regime and the way it has rarely kept its word in the past?
Yeah, any deal with the Communist Party is going to backfire for the church. I think the best thing to do is just allow general trends to continue, because believers are going to win in China. There's no sense capitulating to the Communist Party. That's only going to break up Catholic believers in China and put them into different groups.
No doubt they fear Catholic believers and Protestants as well, because you have a unified group of people who, if you look at other countries where the communists moved in, this was the beginning of the end for them. When you had fervent believers in the center of those communities and those nations, the Chinese have to be very attentive to that.
Absolutely. Religion is growing so fast in China, the Communist Party can't contain it. Just to give you an example, you know, we go to church for maybe an hour, hour and a half. In China, in the underground churches, they go to church all day and still feel it's not enough.
Wow.
The Communist Party hasn't seen fervor like that since 1949.
And the Catholic Church estimates that they had 50,000 baptisms last year. So as you said, it is catching, it is moving like wildfire. And given the challenges and the great persecutions these people endure to practice their faith, it's amazing that we see that. Gordon Chang, thank you as always. And you can visit Gordon at gordonchang.com for the latest on China, North Korea, and much more. Thank you, Gordon.